Cosmic Geppetto podcast is brought to you by MuseGuitarist.com. For help creating your own amazing music, from advice, production, or awesome guitar work, contact Brad Huett at admin@MuseGuitarist.com or visit www.museguitarist.com.
There is a dog loose.
Baby. Hush.
There are early episodes of this podcast. I had a cat that would always somehow find its squeaky toy and would be beating up in the background during the conversation every damn time.
From Geppetto Studios in New Freedom, Pennsylvania, welcome to the Cosmic Geppetto Podcast, your home for inclusive, positive geek culture, where we talk about movies, comics, music, books, and whatever else we feel like. Please welcome your host. Next year, the podcast will be dedicated to discussions of German pornography, Brad Mendenhall.
Hey everybody, it is an inspiring episode of the Cosmic Geppetto podcast. Honey Badger and her amazing friends are here to talk about Captain Marvel. And to make things even cooler, Jarf and I share our fandom of the excellent series Nextwave, Agents of H.A.T.E by Warren Ellis and Stuart Immonen. But first, a few observant listeners called out our last episode did not include the Cheap Pops Network stinger at the top of the show. Well, a decision was made to disband Cheap Pops. I want to wish the shows in the network the best and give special thanks to Brian Fritz. Brian invited us to join Cheap Pops despite Cosmic Geppetto not being a wrestling-centered program. As for the path forward, nothing is changing in the short term. There are some embryonic plans to eventually expand Geppetto Studios, but nothing is ready to be announced. But hey, that's not what you're here for. Let's talk Nextwave. So real quick, so how'd you like Captain Marvel? We're going to go deeper into this, obviously, when we have the friends together.
We're going to go deeper into it once we've got the band together, but I liked it a lot. It's going to be in my top 5 superhero movies all time. How about you?
I liked it a lot. Brie Larson has such a tough job because Captain Marvel was a little bit of a Molly Sue. She was stoic and perfect. So it's not Thor, who's a big dunderhead and fun that way. It's not Tony Stark being the quippy guy. What was cool is when you had, and spoiler alert, when you had that moment where...
Wait, hold on. Before you... I think we want to have a conversation about whether we're going to do it spoiler-free or with spoilers. And include Katie and Michael in on that. I am inclined to do a spoiler-free review.
Well, I'll just say... There were moments in the movie where you had the feels.
Yes, I was moved.
And not very many movies give me the feels. I'm looking forward to seeing it again. Sort of similar to Black Panther, I'm real excited for the sequel. Because Marvel seems to lately to really ramp up for sequels. Some really good performances and surprised me in places. Not every movie does that. We'll go deeper into that with the friends, with Honey Badger and her amazing friends. But you called out. I'm going to let you set up.
There is, and this isn't really spoiling anything, but there is a supporting character in Captain Marvel, Maria Rambeau, played by Lashana Lynch. Her daughter is Monica Rambeau. If you've seen the movie, that cute 11-year-old girl played by Akira Akbar. So that is an Easter egg for a pretty big Marvel character. I don't think it's a hint that they are going to introduce that character down the line, but it did remind me of a favorite comic series that features Monica Rambeau, but as an adult superhero, heavily. I wondered if you were a fan. I reached out to you to ask if you wanted to talk about Nextwave Agents of H.A.T.E. Turns out this is one of your favorite comics, so it was a perfect situation.
Such a brilliant, brilliant series. Only lasted 12 issues. I actually have the complete collection. It was a gift from Brian Waltersdorf from Comic Store West.
Shout out to Comic Store West.
Shout out to Comic Store West. Came out, ran from March 2006 to February 07. Written by Warren Ellis. And Warren Ellis is a brilliant writer. Did Global Frequency and Hellblazer.
Transmetropolitan.
Right, and Planetary, which is a brilliant series.
Planetary is so good.
And drawn by Stuart Immonen, who is an excellent artist. I want to say that Immonen is sort of heir apparent as much as anyone can be to Walter Simonson. Neat, sharp angles, some really kinetic movement, excellent action, a little bit larger than life, just like Simonson does. And I'll leave it to you. How would you describe or thumbnail Nextwave?
The thumbnail it is a completely off-kilter, weird, awesome, action-oriented comedy comic series. Almost like a spoof of S.H.I.E.L.D., but it's a spoof only in the way that I'm trying to think of a good movie analogy.
The most I can think of is sort of like the old Get Smart TV show, where you take all the concepts from the genre and then you just completely put it on its head, and everybody's an idiot. The good guys, the bad guys, the heroes. They're all goofy and completely subverting your expectations, but because they have Immonen doing the artwork, it's still really satisfying action. I mean, it's not like you're just reading it for the laughs. I remember the first issue I ever got was halfway through where the main characters, Nextwave, this team of superheroes, fought the mindless ones, who are recurring characters in Doctor Strange. And it was really funny, but then you got to see the characters beat up on the mindless ones, and it was really cool. It was like good action inside of all that.
Why don't you run down the cast of characters?
So the Nextwave itself is Monica Rambeau, who we talked about, who was a supporting player in the Captain Marvel movie. Elsa Bloodstone, who was the daughter of a deceased character from Marvel. She was sort of a monster hunter. Tabitha Smith, who was an X-Force player named Boom Boom. And she was basically, the whole thing is she was playing this trailer park trash-esque parody. She couldn't spell her own name at one point, and who could make stuff explode real big. The captain, who's basically called guy who called himself the captain because all the other captain names were taken. Captain America, Captain Marvel, all that. So he just started calling himself the captain. And he was a sort of the mysterious character introduced who had no real history, and he was just a profane, overpowered jerk. And then finally Aaron Stack, before known as the Machine Man, who was sort of a bland supporting player in Marvel Comics for decades. And they basically took that character, made it more interesting, and added a little bit of Bender from Futurama in there.
Yes, absolutely. There's a strong Bender vibe. In fact, he's rewired his robot brain so that alcohol works on it.
Characters were all jerks, but still weirdly sort of the whole ragtag bunch of misfits who find a home with each other, but not so much that it became saccharine.
Absolutely not saccharine. I agree with the ragtag. There is a little bit of a Mystery Men vibe to it. But I have an excerpt here from Warren Ellis's original pitch for the comic. And I think it goes a long way in describing the tone that he was going for. He says, Nextwave is not about character arcs and learning and morals and hugs. It's about cramming an insane movie into 44 pages at a time. It's about the mad things underpinning Marvel Comics. It's about special effects out of Asian cinema and absurd levels of destruction, and a skewed sense of humor, and spectacle, and things blowing up, and people getting kicked. It is most especially about things blowing up and people getting kicked.
It was so cool. I remember the final issue. It was just splash page after splash page of these awesome fight scenes with a snarky comment at the bottom. And I was like, oh, this is so great. And they loved sort of tweaking the conventions. One of the major players in it was a parody of Nick Fury.
Dirk Anger.
It was just this big dummy who was a loser, who was part of the Beyond Corporation, and H.A.T.E, which, what did H.A.T.E stand for?
Highest anti-terrorism effort.
So he was the director of H.A.T.E, who was constantly trying to commit suicide because he was such a failure.
Yes, and he's very like toxic masculinity. He has to smoke a gigantic cigar the size of a log. He's just completely over the top and very, very damaged.
So great, so funny, ahead of its time, because I feel like a lot of the humor that was in there would have worked so much better now. Like, I think it could have caught up with a more mainstream audience. The problem was Ellis and Emonen, they were both big deal players. They were expensive. It was expensive talent. So you had these this high-paid writer and this high-paid artist doing a middling selling book, and they had to cancel it because a big budget, it couldn't justify it. I'm not saying that as to bash Marvel Comics. They're a business. I get it. It was just heartbreaking because it only lasted 12 issues, and they've had a real tough time following up on it. When it was canceled, they were saying it's like, oh, they'll be back, or we'll find other ways to bring back the characters or the concept or more miniseries. And it never really happened. There's been little blips here or there. Machine Man keeping the design he had for this series, or still showing sort of a weird antagonism to Monica Rambeau, or I think the Captain showed up recently, like during the Civil War II. Little things like that, but they've never been able to sort of bring back Nextwave. And it's heartbreaking. It stinks when you don't see the series you like followed up on. I tell you what, how much would you love a freeform series of Nextwave?
That would be so good. Is there a moment from the comic that stands out to you as a favorite?
That issue that I talked about, they were fighting the mindless ones, and they did a little background into the character of Elsa Bloodstone. Say she was a second-generation monster hunter, and it showed how horrible her background was. Because her father was Ulysses Bloodstone, who'd raised her as a child to fight evil, to fight monsters. And it showed her as a toddler in diapers. He's like, hello, little Elsa, now you must circumcise the ancient demons of Baruth, or something along those lines. And like gave her this toddler a spoon and threw her into a pit with this giant fanged Nosferatu-looking monster. And they kept showing flashbacks to her terrible upbringing, and then in the present, and her just is like, I'm going to tear apart these monsters as a way to deal with the terribleness of my childhood. It was just funny because it was a great takedown of the whole Batman training his young ward Robin. That you realize that's child abuse. In reality, it's horrible. In comics, we accept it, but it's actually a terrible thing to do. And it was just so funny because it was really good action, because it's Emonen doing these big, awesome scenes of Bloodstone blasting her way through the mindless ones, and cool dynamics, and like I say, really action-packed and kinetic, but also sort of a neat way of tearing apart these stupid conventions in comics that we accept because they're in comics, even if you think about it even a little bit, they're ridiculous.
For me, it was when they reveal how Aaron Stack / Machine Man parted ways with the Celestial. Do you remember this?
They did something I would love where they were bleeping out the profanity. So you have the Celestials, these godlike beings, just basically saying, it's like, see, you're just a
And it's great because they set it up where Machine Man is bragging on himself, and he says, "I'm such a big deal, I was taken up into space by the Celestials." The captain asks him, "So why'd you come back?" And then they flash back to this stately gathering of the Celestials. They say, "You have traveled with us for 360 cycles by your reckoning of time. There is now something we have to tell you. You are total bull." and that's just the sense of humor of the comic. It's so good. I love superheroes, but I also love a good superhero spoof. And this really manages to be both things. Monica Rambeau's, she was the one-time leader of the Avengers. Part of her characterization in this comic is she's the one that won't stop telling you that she once led the Avengers.
It was very much a sort of parody of the high school athlete that keeps talking about the winning touchdown 20 years before that he threw or caught or whatever. Also, her just lording it over everyone is like, well, I led the Avengers. Every other sentence. And it was funny because really she was the most competent one in the group, but they still made her a little insufferable.
Which makes her more interesting and makes the whole situation funnier when you have the one square-jawed one and then sort of a group of screw-ups all around her.
How did this series get on your radar?
I checked it out because it was a Warren Ellis comic, and then I got something so completely different than I expected. He was really freewheeling with this one and obviously just having so much fun. How about you?
I had a friend who worked for Diamond Comics, and people aren't familiar, that's basically the distributor for Marvel and DC and Valiant and Dark Horse, whatever. Basically, all those companies go through Diamond Comics to put the stuff out. They're the mass producers. I would meet with him once a week, and he would always bring the box of cool comics with him. He's like, "Hey, you want any of this?" And I had heard a review of Nextwave, and there was an issue of Nextwave there. And I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll grab this." That's also how Walking Dead got on my radar, because that was in the box. And I opened it up, I was like, well, this is some pretty cool art. And it was nice because it was a good self-contained story, which doesn't happen in comics as much as it used to. Now comics are sort of always presented as one issue in a 6-issue arc. On one hand, it's nice because it gives you longer storytelling, but the downside is you don't have that one issue that can really grab you. And this was one issue that really grabbed me. But then later, I was always looking for the trade paperback of it. I talked to Brian Waltersdorf, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, I'll order it up." And then he handed it to me. He's like, "Oh, keep it." By the way, that's not his normal financial plan. So don't just go and say hi and ask for something, expect him to just give it to you.
So what was your background on the Monica Rambeau character going into Nextwave? And can you say a little bit of how she connects to Captain Marvel? If folks are more so familiar with the MCU than they are with comics, why is there that Easter egg of having young Monica Rambeau in the movie?
I'm a big Monica Rambeau fan because when I first started reading comics, she was Captain Marvel, and it was a very different character than anything that anyone was seeing in the movie. And it was basically, her powers is she had the ability to turn herself into light and any form of radiation on the spectrum. She could become intangible, fire lasers and solid light. She could fly at the speed of light. When I started reading comics, the first issue of Avengers I bought, she was actually the leader of the Avengers.
How did she get her powers? Is it connected to the Captain Marvel Kree technology, all of that?
Completely unrelated. She actually got her powers in an issue of Amazing Spider-Man. I think it was like an Amazing Spider-Man annual, and it was just the popular trope in the 70s and 80s of it was a laboratory accident or an experiment gone wrong, and she got cool powers. Yeah, she doesn't really tie into Carol Danvers or anything or any of the other Captain Marvels. It was really a thing of she just got cool powers and picked that name. Behind the scenes, I think it was a thing of them Marvel wanting to keep the copyright. So she became the leader of the Avengers. If people aren't familiar, the way that the series, the Avengers stories worked is the Avengers would vote in a new leader every in the context of the stories is like every 2 months or whatever. They would always mix it up, so the Wasp, Captain Marvel, Vision all spent time as the leader of the team. And I think it was just a way to sort of mix things up. So she was the leader, and really cool powers, a little overpowered. It's one of those things where her powers are so great when you realize it's like she can move at the speed of light and you can't touch her. How do you get her in a fight where there's a sense of danger? And I know they've tweaked her powers since then, on and off. The character isn't always treated well.
How do you mean?
She never has had her own series. She's always in the background. It takes a really special writer to know how to make her work. Chris Claremont did a great job with her in Avengers vs. X-Men. She just beat everybody up because her powers were so impressive. She pretty much single-handedly beat Magneto in that miniseries. And then later, when there was the big showdown between the Avengers and X-Men, they're having this big fight. Captain Marvel's just tearing through the whole team. At one point, Storm says, is like, perhaps this wasn't the best idea. We might actually lose this fight. Captain Marvel is everywhere. In lesser hands, a lot of times whenever there would be a big battle that she was part of, you would see the Hulk punching a monster. You would see Captain America banging his shield off of someone. You would see Spider-Man webbing up bad guys. And then just in the background would be Captain Marvel flying.
Right.
Sort of the same thing that sometimes happens with the Human Torch in comics, because Johnny Storm's powers are he can set things on fire, but he's a hero, so he doesn't set bad guys on fire. Whenever there's a big battle sequence, all it is there's the Human Torch flying around in the background, not doing anything.
I think it's worth noting here the character is a woman of color, so her being pushed into the background is to a larger trope that comics have been struggling with of not giving prominence to characters of color.
I'm sure Thaddeus House probably has something to say for this. She was Captain Marvel, and then the original Captain Marvel's son was introduced as a character, and she just gave her name up to him. And then she became Photon. And then later, that other Captain Marvel, Genis Val, he decided he wanted to be named Photon, and she just gave her name up again, so she became Spectrum. It's sort of a weird thing where it just sort of made her seem insignificant or lesser than, where she's constantly giving her name up to a white guy who's viewed as more important. It's sort of the same thing that happens in like sports, where a baseball player, Barry Bonds, to use a sort of out-of-date reference, joins your team and he wants to have the number 43, so you just give up the number 43 to him because he's more important. Sort of a thing that I would imagine could very easily leave a bad taste in the mouth of fans of the character.
It's really not cool.
Nextwave was treating it, that was part of the joke about how poorly the character had been treated, but she just went by her real name because all the other names she had ended up being taken by somebody that was viewed as cooler.
I do like the scene where Machine Man makes fun of her former alias Photon, because she's pushing for everyone using nicknames. In that way that I was talking about, she says, well, in the Avengers, we all use nicknames. Machine Man says, wasn't yours Photon? That doesn't really instill fear in the hearts of our enemies. Ooh, look at me. I'm a tiny, insignificant particle. I'll just bounce off you without you noticing.
Monica was a nice piece of the Captain Marvel film. I hope they find a way to keep doing cool stuff with her in the Marvel universe. She was cool. It was a nice little piece. There's a lot of potential for the character. Getting a woman of color, stop me if I'm wrong, has that happened yet in Marvel Cinematic Universe?
With superpowers? No. Highly skilled? Actually, no, I take that back. I agree with your point. I think it's really telling when you have to really scratch your head and think like, wait, has that representation happened? And that alone tells you that it hasn't happened very much. But Ghost from Ant-Man and the Wasp had those phasing powers. It wasn't powers that she wanted, but technically to your question. But the Dora Milaje from Black Panther, just highly skilled soldiers. It would be amazing to see Monica Rambeau, Captain Marvel down the line.
They could do a lot of cool stuff. I look forward to seeing give that character a chance to grow. I want a Nextwave movie. If they could do a Guardians of the Galaxy movie, they could do a Nextwave movie.
I've been thinking about Guardians as we've been talking about this comic. It's if you're not a comics person, if you're just an MCU person, Guardians is a pretty good template for understanding what this comic is like. I think if you take out the sweet message of Guardians about found family and overcoming trauma, which is part of what I love about Guardians, don't get me wrong. It's funny that I am a fan of a comic that is snarky and cynical because that's so not me. Maybe that's why I'm drawn to it, but the sense of humor of Guardians runs through Nextwave, but then it takes it to that next level of all of the good guys being somewhat nasty and terrible.
Guardians also is more of a straight-ahead comic. There's not the meta-commentary.
Yeah, if you ever do check out these comics, I recommend savoring it all. Read the letters column, read all of the intro, read all of those little editor's notes at the bottom, because that snarky sense of humor is infused in every aspect of the comic, the marketing of it, all of the character descriptions in the back of the book. It's just all really good stuff.
Well, hell, go find the Nextwave song. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
They released lyrics for a song about Nextwave, the Nextwave Agents of H.A.T.E theme song.
That's so funny.
And then they invited fans to make up their own version. So if you go on YouTube, you can find the Nextwave Agents of H.A.T.E theme song.
That's amazing. Now that I think about it, it's probably closer to Deadpool in sense of humor.
Definitely, just more consistent, because Deadpool, he has the problem of, they didn't know what they had when they started Deadpool. He was just a bad guy with a cool look. And then it was several years in when they started adding the voiceover and the breaking the fourth wall. Nextwave was perfect because it sort of was born fully formed and just this beautiful 12 issues of perfect comics. Deadpool has the advantage and disadvantage of he's been around for 20, 30 years, pretty much always in at least one series with different writers doing their take. You can see there's some inspiration possibly in both directions. One definitely informed the other.
Do you want to do a spoilers included section of this discussion where we speculate on the future of Captain Marvel, Brie Larson Captain Marvel, and Monica Rambeau Captain Marvel? I think that might be fun. What do you think? Put in a spoiler warning here.
We'll spoil a little bit, but we're just guessing, folks. I'm sorry if this surprises you. Captain Marvel wins at the end of her own movie.
And also is going to be in the next Avengers movie. I don't think that's really a spoiler either.
You should see that coming.
Yes, and you saw it in a post-credit scene in Infinity War. I was thinking back on that moment because Infinity War has been out forever. I don't think we have to worry about spoiling that. Devastating ending. I'm in the theater. It's completely silent as people are shell-shocked, seeing everybody turn to dust. When they had that scene of Nick Fury paging Captain Marvel, you had to already be invested to know that's what was happening, because all he does is press the pager and then you see her logo come up on the screen. The theater erupted in cheers. It was amazing. I've been a fan of the character for a long time, but that was the first glimpse that I got of just how passionate the fan base was for this character and how much excitement there was going to be for the Captain Marvel movie. So that was really cool. I'm starting to think a couple steps ahead now. And this is to your point about the Monica Rambeau Captain Marvel being a little bit overpowered and it sometimes being a challenge for writing. Once Brie Larson's Captain Marvel gets integrated with the Avengers, once it's past this Thanos storyline, they might have a similar problem.
Yeah, because, and this is a good part of the spoilers, and I won't really name names, but a character that in a previous Marvel movie was like the main bad guy that the good guys couldn't really line up against, Captain Marvel made him run scared.
Yes, that's an excellent point.
Basically, the story of Captain Marvel is her learning how to fully use her powers. But now she is like, okay, where do you go from there? Who are you going to have that's at the same level? Now it works with Thanos because Thanos is so incredibly powerful that everyone else is sort of trying to punch up towards him.
What I expect they'll do is, we know Captain Marvel's in the next Avengers movie. Then they're going to send her back off into space. Say, my job's not done with resolving the Kree Skrull situation. Then open it up to, maybe they go Monica Rambeau, because we've done this time jump, and so she would be, she'd be in her 20s now. So you could get young Monica Rambeau. I think it's more likely that they would start to tease the Kamala Khan Ms. Marvel. At least that's what I hope they do. I was actually hoping they would have a post-credit scene teasing her in the Captain Marvel movie. But now that I've seen it all the way through, I see how, at least in the Kamala Khan that we know, it wasn't really workable. Because the whole idea is that she was inspired by the Captain Marvel character, and Captain Marvel never becomes a public figure in the events of the first movie. But now, in the next Avengers movie, I imagine she probably will, because she's running with the Avengers, who themselves are already public figures. That's where I see the possibility of them incorporating Kamala Khan down the line, and I think that would be really fun.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think Kamala Khan comes into play where, and maybe she appears in Endgame, where she's rescued by Captain Marvel. And it could just be something as simple of, you see a student with a name tag that says Khan in a bus saved by Carol Danvers, or something like that. And there's 1,000 different ways they could go about it. Maybe we'll see Monica in Endgame. That could be another thing where she's part of the military now. Power transfers or people getting powers can just happen with a blood transfusion, where she's hurt and Carol gives her blood transfusion, and her Kree blood gives her a version of her powers. But you can still do something cool about it to change it around. It's like, oh, it affects everyone differently. I would love to see that, as long as she's not just the friend that gets beat up. Basically what happened to War Machine in the comics, especially, where Jim Rhodes as War Machine, his whole point in that series is to be the lesser Iron Man that gets beat up, to show how much of a challenge someone will be for the real Iron Man. But the Marvel movies are usually pretty good at avoiding that.
That speaks to what was my only fear going into Captain Marvel, because I could tell by the preview, Monica Rambeau's mom, Maria Rambeau, was a part of Carol Danvers' past. So they were having these flashbacks to them being test pilots. Because it is such a common trope, I was just really dreading that part of Carol's tragic backstory was going to be Maria Rambeau died in an accident and somehow it was partially Carol Danvers' fault. What I really appreciate about the movie is they just let their friendship be an important part of the story. She didn't have to die to give Carol her feelings. There was none of the women in fridges trope. It just was about women and the strength of their friendship. So I think that would be like a concern if they did do Monica Rambeau as the next Captain Marvel, or somehow explored that, just because that's like gravity in storytelling, and we're constantly pulled back into that trope. So I want to give a shout out to the creators of Captain Marvel for not going down that road.
I was so worried for that character throughout the movie. I kept waiting for her to get killed as a motivation for Carol.
Right?
At any point where you saw her in even remotely dangerous activities, it's like, oh, they're going to make Monica an orphan, aren't they? This is going to really tick me off. And I was pleased with how things turned out. Captain Marvel did a lot of stuff right. and you realize how impressive it is what they did right, because I've watched so many movies and I was very much expecting things to go wrong like they always do in every other movie, like forever.
Including Infinity War. Thanos kills his own daughter to give Star-Lord his motivation.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Marvel hasn't been perfect with this. It's just the fact that, again, I said that it was a trope in the comics, but in Captain America Civil War, Rhodey gets paralyzed, and basically by accident. Vision is such a powerful character that he's able to, aiming for someone else, knock Rhodey out of action and cripple him. The treatment of characters of color and female characters has been imperfect. They've definitely better than sometimes what you can expect. They haven't done as much damsel in distress. A little bit with Jane Foster in the Thor movies, which might be why that's one of the least liked characters in Marvel.
Yeah, and a real shame when you've cast such a great actress in Natalie Portman to give her so little to do.
I've said this before. Sometimes I get really disappointed when I hear about actors getting cast in certain movies or certain roles, because Chris Evans notwithstanding, you can only cast people in so many superhero movies. Like Idris Elba as Heimdall in the Thor movies. It's like, I want to see him as Black Panther, and not Chadwick Boseman is the perfect Black Panther, but you want to see Idris Elba as a major player. Have him be Reed Richards. How cool would Idris Elba be as Reed Richards?
Oh my God. I can't believe we haven't talked about this before. That is really good.
Yeah, imagine finally having a cool Reed Richards, but someone who can still pull off the intelligence. Damn it, Marvel! Why'd you cast him as Heimdall? They just announced Idris Elba was going to be Deadshot in Suicide Squad 2.
Wait, well, so this betrays that I haven't exactly been keeping my finger on the pulse of comic book movie news, but they're making a Suicide Squad 2?
Well, don't forget, 1 made a lot of money, and they have pulled in James Gunn to write the script, and he will probably direct it.
Oh, I did hear that.
Will Smith announced a week or two that he will not be in it.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah, it's a shame, because Will Smith, I thought, was very good he was one of the bright spots of that movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he will be replaced by Idris Elba. And again, it's like, that's what you're going to get him to do. Why not have him as Jon Stewart Green Lantern? Or, I don't know, and the DC cinematic universe is in a mess anyway, but there isn't a more esteemed character that you could have him play. Just part of an ensemble in sort of a dented franchise anyway, and it could be really good. I have a lot of faith in James Gunn, but still, no matter how good it is, it'll take 2 movies to get the stink off from the first one.
Absolutely. I'm trying to decide what is worse. Casting him as Heimdall or casting him as Deadshot, is it? Yeah, Deadshot. Suicide Squad has so much baggage from an unpopular first movie. That's a vote in favor of that one being worse. And it's not a character with a whole lot of room to grow. Like, you don't see him getting a standalone Deadshot movie out of it. But credit to Thor Ragnarok for giving Heimdall a decent little storyline of saving some refugees, so he had a little bit more to do. But as it's originally written, you cast one of the greatest actors of our time to be the doorman for Thor and his friends.
It basically gave him a helmet that blocks his face. The only thing I'll give them, Thor came out in 2011. It's not like Idris Elba then is who he is now. His career really skyrocketed really shortly after that. At that point, he was a television actor. He had done The Wire from 2002 to 2004. Then you're just giving a role to a really cool actor who doesn't have anything big on his resume. Now we know who Idris Elba is.
So yeah, Deadshot casting is worse because they should know better. They should know what they're doing.
Give him James Bond. Give him Reed Richards and be done with it. You can still make Reed Richards in a Fantastic Four movie work. He won't have the goofy contacts. And he won't have the Heimdall hair in Ragnarok or the Heimdall helmet in the first 2 movies. But it is always weird, the roles they give him, where either he's a bad guy in franchises where he should be the lead. Like he's going to be the bad guy in the Hobbs and Shaw movie. Have you seen the ads for that?
I haven't seen the ads. I've seen a little bit of marketing, but not a trailer.
Looks fine. He looks awesome, and he's basically the only person on the planet with enough charisma that you believe him fighting The Rock and Jason Statham and them being the underdogs, and him being the bad guy in the third Star Trek Beyond. It's great that he was in the movie, and it was a pretty good movie, but gosh, you're going to have, you have Idris Elba, and we knew who he was then. It's like you're going to have him in unrecognizable prosthetics for the first 3/4 of the movie, and then he's just a bad guy that gets killed at the end. No, give him his own Star Trek. Give him his own franchise. I want to see, how cool would Idris Elba be?
As a Starfleet captain? Yeah. As usual, we've gone all across the multiverse, but just to tie it back to Captain Marvel a little bit with a fun fact that I think you'll appreciate. I didn't know if you already knew. If you enjoyed seeing Lashana Lynch as Maria Rambeau, you might be happy to hear that she is going to play Agent 355 in the Y TV series.
That is the best news I've heard in a long time.
Sweet. Yeah, I know you're a fan of the Y the Last Man comic book series.
Especially that character. That is an awesome character. She is an kicker. She has agency. I believed every moment of that character in that series. There was one specific issue where it sort of went through her flashback and her origin story. She had this great, what was it called? Like a scoping baton that she would fight with.
Like a telescoping
baton to beat people with. They had this great sound effect that always went with it, sort of like the iconic snikt for Wolverine. It was this great flashback, and you saw how she became who she is and how she was competent and tough. And then at the very end, you have all the other characters that are scared, including the main character, Yurik. So you had the guy that was scared because they were surrounded by bad guys or they were closing in, and she just sort of got a serious look on her face, drew her weapon with the sound effect that you got used to seeing with it, and that was the end of the issue. It's like, oh yeah, she's serious now. We don't need to see what happens. We know what happens. She beats everyone up.
Nice. I dig it.
I look forward to that. I'm really excited about the Y the Last Man series. That was a great comic. I think could just be, in the right hands, could be awesome. Her being cast in that is, that makes me feel good about the possibility of it being as good as I want it to be.
Well, maybe that is a good, hopeful note to wrap up this discussion on.
Yeah, we don't want to leave it with Idris Elba being Deadshot.
No.
Jarf, you have any pluggables to plug?
I am in pre-production for a podcast celebrating and analyzing the movie Joe versus the Volcano with our friend and friend of the show, Tierney. So Joe versus the Minute is going to be a Movies by Minute podcast where we get to spend a couple of our days of the week with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan and really look at a strange, beautiful fairy tale of a movie 1 minute at a time. Like I mentioned, we're still in the planning stage, but we're starting to leak some ideas about the show. Follow us on Twitter to see those at Joe versus Minute.
I'm really looking forward to that. That was a great choice for a minute-by-minute movie. A movie that a ton of people saw, doesn't get its just due. Just daring, ballsy movie. So you don't realize until much later how much it was, because everyone views Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan as this iconic romantic comedy couple in films. But that wasn't a romantic comedy by any stretch. That was just a weird, quirky, really smart movie. So you're great. Everyone knows you're great. And Tierney's also great. So that's going to be I'm really looking forward to hearing how that comes out.
Well, thank you. We'll definitely have to have you on for some week.
All right, Jarf. This has been awesome as always. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. And I look forward to talking more Captain Marvel with Honey Badger and her amazing friends.
You're going to say it, right?
Of course I'm going to say it. We will see you in the funny pages.
It's like having the thing on and him not saying his clobbering time. Come on.
It's like Shakespeare, but with lots more punching. It's like Goethe, but with lots more crunching. Like Titanic, but the boat's still floating. No, it's not. The motherfucker is exploding. Nextwave! Nextwave! Dark anger is one crazy mamma jammer. He leads hating around in his pretty pajamas. Hate was formed by the Beyond Corporation. Purposely to bring about catastrophic devastation. Gonna help you out. Need a toothbrush. The Beyond Corporation's got an extra one. Do you have a stepson? The Beyond Corporation's gonna rub him out. Do you see a monster or a pirate? Electric emu, a giant sky rat, a midget Hitler, or Pirate's pilot? Don't call your mom or your doctor. Just pick up the phone and call. That's right. Organize your sock drawer. Elsa! He's gonna speak with an accent. The Captain! His name is the Captain! Nextwave! Whoa, 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 whoa! Nextwave! Whoa, 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 whoa! Nextwave! Oh, somebody please call Nextwave! Oh, God!
Honey Badger and her amazing friends.
Welcome everybody to a new chapter of Honey Badger and her amazing friends on the Cosmic Geppetto podcast. I am Honey Badger and I am taking over this cast for today, but we still have our fearless leader Brad on the line.
Hey, everybody.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. My only problem is my wife now wants me to buy a superhero cat.
Oh.
Because of this movie.
I mean, you should do that.
We'll have to talk, but she doesn't seem to really understand the implications. That cat messes people up.
You know, it's a great home detection service, good security service. I don't see anything wrong with it.
That cat can stay where the hell is that?
All right, and also with us is Bestie Mike. How are you doing, Mike?
I'm doing good. I'm doing real good.
And sadly, we don't have Jarf today, but we will try to soldier on without him.
Jarf has been working hard for the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. He just didn't have anything left to give.
That's fair.
But his thoughts are with us.
Yes, for sure. So we are here to talk today about, well, originally it was supposed to be just about Captain Marvel, but we had a surprise this morning, and the new trailer for Endgame dropped as well, so I figured we would kind of talk about both those things. But why don't we start with Captain Marvel? Brad, what were your overall impressions of the movie? Did you like it? Did you hate it?
I liked it very much. Or what was a shame was the least interesting character was actually Captain Marvel. I felt really bad for Carol Danvers, and by extension I felt pretty bad for Brie Larson. I really like Brie Larson as an actress. She was a little bit of a Molly Sue, and not remembering her past, I think, limited the character a little bit. It wasn't until the end of the movie where she got into butt kicker mode that I really started connecting with her. Everyone else was so cool that it was tough, because she was just sort of like a white meat good guy. But I thought the effects were really good. I thought the story was solid. There was a pretty nifty twist in the middle. I think they had some really good bad guys, or who you think are bad guys. Ooh. I went with my wife. She doesn't usually go to the superhero movies with me. She did this time. She enjoyed it a lot, which says something. But she really wants that cat. She felt that was a pretty cool feline in this film.
All right, Mike, what did you think? I'm hoping for your usual enthusiasm.
I thought the movie was dope. All right, out the gate. I know that she's been proclaimed as a Mary Sue character. I don't give a damn. All right, it's about time we got the Marvel version of a female character in the lead role. Been waiting for this for a long time. This is about to open up the door to more female superheroes leading the way in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I personally loved Carol Danvers. I loved her snarkiness. I loved her sarcasm. I loved her confidence. My favorite aspect of this movie was not one to, I know it was subconsciously there, so that's probably why it didn't bother me, but she did not say, and no one ever said, what, I can't do it because I'm a girl. Watching the movie, I know those subtleties and that idea is there, but I definitely prefer this over the way that they did it over how every other episode of the first 2 seasons of Supergirl was, I can't do it because I'm a girl. I can't do it because I'm a girl, but I'm going to show you. No, she was strong, she was confident, and she just did it. That's how she showed that she could do things. She just freaking did it. And she messed up a few different times or whatnot. I had super fun. I think the cast was great. It was a nice collaboration of characters. Now, is the movie Infinity War, Black Panther, Winter Soldier level? It's not. Those films are in the stratosphere for Marvel. But it is still a really good Marvel comic book movie, and I had a lot of fun with it, enjoyed it severely.
Yeah, I liked it like one level below that top tier. So I want to say it's the top of the middle tier, and for an introduction movie, and this isn't like Black Panther where we had a chance to be introduced to T'Challa in Civil War. This character's coming in fresh, so they had a lot of work to do. Yeah, I agree that it was really I think one of the best introduction movies to happen. I'm with you. And I liked it. I liked it a lot. I don't want to be the guy who doesn't like it.
You better not. No, it's okay. We're all allowed to have our opinions. Some of them are wrong, but you're allowed to have it. I'll tell you what, when I first started watching this movie, I was confused, and this was kind of my own fault because I had it in my head that this took place on Earth in the 90s, and then at some point maybe we would be in space. And so when we started out in space and she was already this bad character, I was a little confused, but that was my own fault for having this idea of how the movie was supposed to play out and it not playing out how I thought. So at first I was like, oh God, this is going to be a long couple of hours. But I really got into it and I really loved it. I loved all the 90s references. I loved the story arc. This movie to me was everything that I wanted Wonder Woman to be, and it wasn't. Because as Michael said, Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel, she has like that confidence. She goes and she does those things, but she messes up sometimes and she's not perfect. Whereas Wonder Woman is just like out of the gate, super confident, gets done, doesn't even think about it. Like there's no inner struggle. There's no who am I? And the one thing that I loved is that the Kree are trying to make her into something that she's not and telling her that she's not going to be able to harness her powers until she manages to control her emotions and is more like them, whereas she has a conversation with Fury. He's talking about leading by intuition and using those emotions, and it clicks with her like, wait, I should be who I am, and I should follow my gut, and that ultimately makes her stronger than what she was before.
That's really awesome. All right, so it's no secret I'm not a huge fan of the Wonder Woman movie. I think it's great. I think it does some good things. But overall, it was very disappointing to me as far as the movie I was looking forward to start to kick this door in female-led superhero movies. Did a lot of things that I did not like, but that does not mean it did not do good things as well. I was just disappointed with the end result. But Captain Marvel did a lot of things for me that Wonder Woman did not do, and which I was looking forward to seeing. I had a very clear picture in my head that Marvel was taking notes on what DC did in regards to that, and then they were going to make it their own, which they did exactly. My wife brought up a very good point that I didn't see, and because I'm a guy, I didn't probably is the reason why I didn't see it. But in the scene where she's talking to old boy, and he puts his gun up, and he's like, "Oh, I'm so proud of you. That's what I'm talking about. This is it. Turn off the light show, Carol, and face me as you are. Face me just with you and not the light show. This is how you become who you really are." And she shoots him and says, "I don't have anything to prove to you." In my head, based off of how I saw the movie or what I saw in the movie, because there was times when she really took a deep breath and got calm, and then she learned a new power, like the ability to fly or whatnot. So I took it as she was at a point where she could take him one-on-one in hand-to-hand combat, but she didn't have to, because she's who she is. She is her power is her own. But then my wife explained to me, no. It goes back to that whole thing about how women are so full of emotion and they let their emotions take control of them, and they're out of control because they may be on that time of the month or they're pregnant, so their emotions can't be controlled, yada, yada, yada. But Carol is accepting who she is, and she's not going to let anybody dictate who she's going to be or what she is or say her emotions are out of control. Her emotions are her. Her emotions are a part of her.
It's not a bug, it's a feature. This is actually part of what makes her great, is that she's not afraid to go with her instincts, go with her emotions, and she draws strength from it, and that's what makes her special.
I totally loved that about it. I loved also that there's just like a bunch of strong, badass women in this movie. Like, you have Marvel, you have Monica, and even little Maria, the little girl, like, you know she's going to grow up and she's going to, like, be just, like, running. It's just awesome, and it was really exciting. And I also loved that there's no love interest, because, like, why? Not necessary.
It just would have added 30 minutes to the movie without actually adding anything to the movie. It didn't need it. Marvel movies, sometimes they don't need that. You look at some of the better Marvel movies. The first Iron Man, Winter Soldier really didn't have a love interest. In Civil War, it was just barely tacked on a little bit. If it makes sense for the movie, that's fine, but you don't need it. And, well, that was something in Wonder Woman. And I love Chris Pine. Chris Pine's great, but they had to add a lot of content to that movie to get that love interest in there, and it didn't really sing for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it was totally unnecessary, so I really appreciated that they didn't do that in this. And what I loved is that instead they focused on her friendships, her friendship with Monica, her friendship with Fury, which was awesome, because I love seeing this side of Fury, this young Fury who's like full of hope and who's like kind of the softer side of him. And it, like, you kind of see the events that happen in this movie start to kind of turn him into that like badass that he is now, like the big heart, you know, like I liked kind of seeing the softer side of him. And I loved their interaction.
I absolutely loved that there was no freaking love interest. I absolutely love it. That's what, when it ended, I was like, oh my God, there were no sex jokes. There was no sexual windows. There was no love interest. It was just her. It was just her and her friends, and they did it. Oh my goodness, that was so great. It made me so happy, because I'm in the same bucket. Like, that's one of the reasons why I didn't like Wonder Woman, because there was all this intimacy and a couple little sex jokes. And why did we need to see Chris Pine completely naked? Like, that did not serve any purpose in the movie. And somebody tried to tell me, well, they do it in all the other superhero movies for you guys. I'm like, and I disagree when it's done in there too. It didn't serve any purpose. It wasn't helping the narrative or anything like that. It was literally just put there because this was a female-led movie. It's done all the time with the guys, so let's do it for us. That was the only reason it was put in there. It's like, oh, eye for an eye. That's my personal opinion. If you guys want to burn a torch down for me, that's perfectly fine. I don't care. No, not you people listening saying, Michael, shut up. That's wrong. Because I've gotten into a few heated debates about this whole Wonder Woman thing. But I liked it. Like, she wasn't asking for permission to do anything. Now, she had a commander that she reported to, and she even gave some flack back on that because, you know, she was a young rookie who couldn't wait to get out here in the field and do something she was very proud of. One of the reviews or somebody was saying how people that were hating on Brie Larson kept on talking about how she was so cocky and she was so oh, I'm a woman and I could do this because I'm a woman and I'm a Kree warrior and I'm a hero. And I didn't get that feeling at all. What I got was she was proud of being a part of the Kree. She was proud of the role that she had and what she was able to provide. That's pretty much any young superhero we know that finally gets to be a superhero, or somebody vying to be an Avenger, or like Cannonball. He was proud as hell to be an X-Man when he finally got moved up from X-Force to the X-Men, because that's the big leagues. The X-Men is the big leagues. X-Force, back in the day, they were considered the minor leagues for the X-Men and whatnot. That's where you trained to be an X-Men. That's where you did the real stuff. That's where you saved the world 3 times out of the week.
Yeah, and she showed that she was up for it and confident, and she was ready to go. It was so nice. It's been a good year so far, or the last 6 months for female characters. Not that far removed from Spider-Gwen in the Spider-Verse.
Well, and even there's a bunch of bad characters in Black Panther too. I can't wait to see more of them.
See, and that's another thing. The female characters were not the main characters in Black Panther, and they were some of the ones. They were done the best service out of any comic book movie that I've seen. There was nothing that T'Challa could do without a woman being present in that decision making for him. From his mom to his relationship to I pronounce it wrong all the time, but his guards, the Dora Lame, I always pronounce it wrong. I'm so sorry. It's disrespectful. But they were there for him. But they were respected. They were powerful. They were strong. They were confident. They had everything, and they weren't over-sexualized. So, I mean, and they were in the movie 15 minutes the entire film, and they were a better representation of a wide range of colored females than in a lot of other movies. I'm just saying.
One of the things that I really liked, and I think this might be something we've touched on before with Black Panther, that was what made Black Panther. That was his advantage over Killmonger, because Killmonger didn't respect women. From when he first gained his powers, the first thing he did was threaten and assault the only woman in the room, lifting her up by her neck. And that's sort of where T'Challa's strength came from, is he listened to and relied on the women in his life, be it his mom, his sister, or his guards. I'm looking forward to that as well. And we'll talk a little bit about the new trailer, but you get a feeling that the head guard for T'Challa is going to be featured in the movie. She's on the poster. How cool is that?
And people are complaining that her name's not in the top credits above the title. I was like, I didn't know that was something that we can complain about.
This day and age, we can complain about everything.
Apparently so. I mean, she is on the cover. She's a character in the movie, but she's not a main character. She's not one of the leading roles in the film.
And I get it. The only woman of African descent isn't an above the title name. But in fairness, that doesn't really have anything to do with the importance of the character in the movie or anything really. That's something the agents work on. For whatever reason, Bradley Cooper, his agent, was able to negotiate his name being above the title. That's just how these things work, unfortunately. But I don't think that's going to represent how the character is treated or portrayed in the movie.
See, that's what somebody else said, which honestly, it makes a lot of sense. Bradley Cooper has won an Oscar. Bradley Cooper has led a few different movies where he has raked in a lot of money with those. At the end of the day, I love her. I love her. I love Dana so much, but she's still a supporting character she's a supporting character in the movie where she's one of the, how do I say this? In Black Panther, she's a supporting character, and now in Avengers, she's a supporting character of a supporting character. You know what I'm saying? It's still this is the swan song. And no knock against her, because she is an up and rising star. She's coming into her own. But at the end of the day, this is a swan song for Iron Man, Captain America, Black Widow, Hulk, Thor, Hawkeye. This is their final flick with all of them together. They're the leading cast in it. Hollywood is a popularity thing, and like you said, his manager was able to negotiate it.
An interesting theory, and I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on this. There's a scene where Carol is kind of starting to get her memories back, and she's remembering a time when she is hanging out with Monica, and you see the big sky, and there's a shooting star that passes by. And so his theory is that shooting star is not actually a shooting star. That's the ship that's taking Peter Quill off of Earth. So Yondo's taking him away. So that's the theory, and the timeline kind of checks out. So it was just kind of wanted to see what you guys thought about that, or if you had any other interesting theories or tie-ins for the movie.
They're saying the timeline for that checks out?
Yeah.
I mean, if the timeline checks out, the timeline checks out. I thought Peter got taken, and I mean, it's a lot of movies. It's 21 damn movies. But I thought Peter got taken more in the 80s.
Yeah, so this is a flashback when she's starting to remember some of her memories.
Yeah.
So it would have been like at least 6 years prior.
If it is, that's a cool throw in there. I don't know how necessarily it was important to do that besides, hey, it'll be cool if we could fit this in here.
Well, it's interesting because there's always a lot of talk about that. And you always wonder when that's going to be addressed with Kevin Feige or the directors, and they're going to say, oh, yeah, sure. You wonder how much of that was planned ahead of time or how much of it is the fan theories presented to them and they just sort of agree with it.
It's interesting because when I heard that theory, I actually remembered that scene, and I remember thinking, like, is this shooting star significant in some way? And then kind of, like, forgot about it until I heard theory, and I was like, oh my god, maybe it was significant. I don't know, it just happened to be, like, a weird small moment that they actually remembered.
I'm wondering if there's going to be a scene in Endgame. There's going to be time travel involved. I know that doesn't make Katie happy. The honey badger does not like her time travel.
No.
Where just little things where they sort of go back into the other movies. And the one thing that I always wondered about is in Doctor Strange, it was never really explained why he had his car accident. And I thought you almost saw a flash of something. And I wonder if they're going to do something where they're going back in time and hitting all these big moments in the Marvel movies. And that's a top point where they could say, it's like, oh yeah, two things happened at the same time. So that would be sort of neat. I would be intrigued to see if it's a thing where this was always in the recipe or such as something that they add on to the end. But I love theories like that. I just read somebody's theory that in Jurassic World movies that Owen, Chris Pratt's character, is actually the little boy who Alan Grant scared at the beginning of the first Jurassic Park and telling him to respect the raptors. It was like, okay. And again, sort of the ages match up, so why not? I'm always intrigued by that, although I think 9 times out of 10 it's just viewers wanting to see connections where there aren't. I think a good example was there was always the talk that in the second Iron Man movie when there was a little boy who had the Iron Man mask who almost got blown up by one of the evil iron machines. Somebody was like, oh no, that's Peter Parker. And they asked Tom Holland, he's like, oh yeah, that was my character. It's like, no, it wasn't. You're just making stuff up. And agreeing because it's a much cooler theory than just, no, it's just a kid who was hired and actually was sort of cute when we put an Iron Man mask on him.
Right. Absolutely.
So I've heard some people who are really into the comics claim that she's too powerful, that Captain Marvel is too powerful. What do you guys think?
Was it a bunch of boys?
I mean, of course, but yeah.
we can't have a girl be as strong as Thor and the Hulk. Gee golly, shut up, man. Who cares? It should not matter. Thor, no one complained when Thor got that hammer and with Super Saiyan 17 at the end of Infinity War. And he was just wrecking shop on everything. Nobody cares when Hulk gets angry and he comes through and he punches a 2 million foot long snake in the face and kills it. He's too powerful. I care not. She's crazy powerful in the comic books, too.
See, that's what I said, and then they argued with me, and then I just stopped.
That's not a problem for this movie, because in this movie, the whole plotline is, and she sort of says at the end, is like, I've been fighting with one hand tied behind my back. She wasn't able to use her full limits of her powers. And then at the end, you get this great moment, this fantastic 5 minutes where, oh, that's how powerful it is. And spoiler alert, and we'll have to put a spoiler alert at the beginning of this episode. Spoiler alert, she makes Ronan the Accuser, who basically took on everybody in existence in Guardians of the Galaxy and had to be tricked out of winning. She made him back down. That's pretty darn cool.
Yes, it is.
Overpowered, I mean, that's a problem for, it's not even a problem for in Endgame, because Endgame, she can be as powerful as you want, she's still going up against Thanos. Where it'll be a problem, if it is, or what the writers will have to worry about, is when you get to Captain Marvel 2, the way they come up with a bad guy that matches up with her. But they'll do it fine, and they'll probably just do a similar thing where they find a way to limit her powers, and then at the end is like her overcoming those limitations, because I think that's who Carol Danvers is. Her whole thing, and the scene that gave me chills was her flashing back to every time she gets knocked down and being told she can't do it, and then her stepping up and is like, I can do it. That's sort of her thing, is like the limits being placed on her by other people and her overcoming them. That's her arc. They'll be fine. Marvel has a pretty good track record.
Pretty good. Let me give you some numbers. This is film 21 that has just came out, and Marvel, between 21 films, has over $20 billion made with 21 movies. By the time Captain Marvel gets out there, Captain Marvel's pacing on track to be at $1 billion broken. Then when an Endgame comes out, that's got the potential to go 2.5, maybe $3 billion. Each one of these movies in this franchise for the Marvel Cinematic Universe will average $1 billion per film made. There is no other movie saga in history with a track record like that. Marvel has more than my faith. After Endgame, because I know it's going to be great, their next 3 movies could suck ass, and I'm still on board. 22 great films? Man, come on. The Unbelievable Ticket, bought and rebought and purchased again.
Yeah, yes. I agree. But I can never agree as entertainingly as you throw it out.
I don't think anybody can. We've kind of like touched on thoughts on Endgame, so why don't we go ahead and start talking about that trailer? Brad, what were your impressions? How did it make you feel?
They've done a great job. This is the 3rd major trailer. They had the original trailer, then they had the Super Bowl ad, and now this. Each has a really distinctive feel, and this was the one that sort of reminded you that they're going to have a little bit of fun. And it was really, the fun just arrived in the last few seconds. Carol's there, and her having a stare down with Thor, and it was so cool because up until this point, Thor has pretty much, he's the most powerful person in Marvel Universe, and you could just see, oh my gosh, there's somebody who's just who isn't intimidated, isn't even challenging. She's almost, it was like really fun and almost dismissive. It's like, okay, you want to go, we can go. This is great. It's like him saying, I like her. And of course he likes her. Thor likes somebody who can sort of go mano-a-mano with him. It looked great. The movie's going to be great. Those, what's it called, the Quantum Realm uniforms, they're looking pretty cool. The movie's going to be so darn good. They really don't even have to advertise anymore. We're all going to show up.
We are. No, they have. They don't. I watch John Campea a lot, like his show. And most times I agree with him. Sometimes I don't. But and when this trailer dropped today, I'm sorry, I've been sitting over here just like scratching at myself, asking for more crack. When this trailer dropped today, it was flipping fantastic. My eyes were watering up with amazement. Captain America, oh my God, he could get me to sign up for the military today if he wanted me to. That trailer was made for us. The last 2 trailers were made for us. The geeks, the fans that already are completely invested in this series. They know we're going to go there. They know we're going to be there, but they're promoting this a different way. Now, I agree with John Campea, and I feel like they still need to do one more trailer, and that needs to be the shock and awe trailer for the general audience. So you need to have like a 30-second trailer that just shows some craziness of action and some quick clips of just massive epicness. So people, the regular people that are not geeks like us, look at it and they're like, this is the Avengers movie that everyone's talking about? Oh, I'm going there. Because they already know they're going to get our money. They got my money in the 6th grade when I picked up X-Men number 17. All right? They had my money all the way back then. Steve Rogers is amazing. Whatever it takes, man. I have found a way to work that into every single conversation I've had today. Whatever it takes. Hey, Mike, can you do your lesson plans for the class today? Whatever it takes. Whatever. I don't care. This movie is going to be amazing. All they're going for their emotions. They're striking our heart. They're like Norman Osborn from Spider-Man 1. The heart, Norman. The heart.
Well, so for me, I got chills watching the trailer. This has been happening a lot lately, as it turns out. Yeah, the final interaction between Thor and Captain Marvel. I know I said that the thing I loved about Captain Marvel was that she didn't have a love interest. But the whole time while I was watching that movie, I was like, I would be okay if she and Thor got together. I think that she is an appropriate choice for him. Nobody is good enough for him, but I feel like she might be the one because Jane was boring. I didn't like that pairing at all, and nobody else that's come in I felt has been a good match to him, but I feel like I think they would be great together. And even if there's no love interest, I'm fine with that too. I think they're going to make an amazing duo.
You didn't like Valkyrie and Ragnarok? I thought they had some good vibes.
Nah, I wasn't feeling it.
Not your man, huh?
Mm-mm. I have high expectations for him.
Valkyrie, and she was great, but you didn't know who she was going to have the romantic interest in, if they were even going to do it. They had one little moment where, in Ragnarok, where Thor and Valkyrie beat up the bad guy ships, and they sort of were both out of breath, and you could sort of see they were digging each other because they were both great fighters. Also, there was some neat stuff with Valkyrie and Bruce Banner.
Oh, yeah.
Valkyrie, she's another character. It's like she doesn't really need a love interest. She doesn't need to be a love interest, and she doesn't need one. But I would sort of like that. That's the sort of thing that will be fun to explore in a comic book continuation where they just show Thor and Carol Danvers on a date. It would be insane. The two most powerful people in the universe, and what do they do? And she's a girl from the 90s, and he's a guy from like the 1690s. That'd be fun.
I think it would be great. I'm looking forward to their interactions together, and I know we kind of discussed this when the first Infinity War came out about like which interactions we were excited to see. Do you guys have any other pairings that you think would be off the wall? Because now we've got a couple new characters in the mix.
Every single person interacting with every single person. I can't even answer this question because the people that I wanted to see, they didn't mingle them together. But then the people they did mingle them together, I was like, oh my God, that's incredible. Those were the teams. That was the way it was supposed to be. I am strapped in with my seatbelt on. Marvel, take the wheel. I'm here for you. All right, that's just where I'm at. Rocket Raccoon on War Machine's shoulder, cocking back a gun, and War Machine's eyes blazing red. Are you kidding me right now? Ant-Man, anyone he interacts with is going to be ridiculous fun times. Black Widow, I don't even think Black Widow is not going to be taking any names. She's out to kill. And don't even get me started on Hawkeye. Hawkeye? Come on, man. Come on. Oh my God, let's go to the movies. Let's go to the movies.
I completely agree. Two pairings I would like to see is have Ant-Man interact with Thor and have him interact with Carol. He has such cool powers, but they're small powers, and have these two really supremely powerful characters interacting with the guy who can make himself small. And also, Carol, she's the stoic, no-nonsense butt kicker, and Thor, the god of thunder. And then there's Scott Lang, who's sort of a guy who almost fell backwards into this world. Scott Lang's so fun because he's sort of us. He's a regular guy in that world. So he's the one who's really awestruck when he meets Cap and is so happy to be part of this world. Cap's the one driving the cool motorcycle. There's Scott Lang in like a crappy van with stuff painted on the side. So I'm looking forward to those interactions.
I can't wait to see Hulk come back. If you really want to talk about an interaction that I want to see Hulk punch Thanos in the face. That's the interaction I want to see because payback's oh God. It's gonna be so good. Like, I mean, I can't even So let's really look at this. They have now came out with Captain Marvel and tied this whole verse together with the connection and how it all started and all the little Easter eggs and things like that. But let's go back to what Tony Stark said in Avengers 1. We may not be able to save the world, but you damn sure bet we will avenge it. They didn't save the world, and now they're about to avenge it. It's done, son.
Yes, it is done.
The thing I need most of all, and I don't know what I will do. Okay. I cannot wait, and I hope to God they put it in there. I will not be mad if it's not in there. I'm lying. I will be mad. I need Cap to say Avengers Assemble.
Oh, yeah. It's.
I need it.
It's past time. It's past time.
Please give it to me. Give it to me, please. Give me Avengers Assemble. Freaking Tony Stark and Cap. I need them to make up. I need him to throw him the shield. He puts it on. He looks up. Avengers assemble. All of them come down.
Katie, what about you? What characters are you looking forward to interacting?
Definitely Thor and Captain Marvel. I mean, there's always been a strong bond between Black Widow and Hawkeye, and it seems like Hawkeye has lost everything at this point, so I'm excited to see them kick together like they used to. I am hoping to not see Pepper Potts, but there was too much of her in the trailer, so I have a feeling we are going to see her, and I swear to God, if she turns into Iron Man, I'm going to lose it.
Oh, that's a quote from the last movie. That's incredible. Yeah, because the rumor is she becomes Rescue.
Yeah, no, I'm not buying it. Bye.
Oh my goodness, there's so much. I mean, and I think the chances are slim of all the characters being in this movie outside of like being at the very end, showing where they're at or not. But if I can get that classic comic, all the heroes united together on different levels of a shattered building after Cap says Avengers assemble and they all charge Thanos, I'll walk out the movie. I don't even have to know how it ends after that. I'll just get up and say I'm done, man. This is it. That's what I 11 years for this. I'm great.
So in the trailer, we only see Captain Marvel, but does she have a team with her, or do you think she just came by herself? Because, I mean, she's been traveling with the Skrull trying to find a homeworld for them, and then obviously half of them disappeared, so she knows something's up. But do you think that she has a team with her of some bad Skrull warriors that are going to help them?
I think she came by herself. If Nick is paging her, I think she just rolled out. She's probably faster than the Skrull ship or whatnot.
And I don't think the Skrulls that were presented in that movie, I don't think they'd be a big help.
I'm not trying to argue with you, but if you remember, there is, when she's talking, and I can't remember the direct quote, but he says that there's thousands of them scattered throughout the universe just trying to search for a home. So there's a potential that that's like a group of people that they could be calling together.
It could. She could have the Skrull army behind her. It's just tough that sort of like the Skrulls are presented. They still seem to be sort of more of an espionage group. I think they could make that work if they wanted to. Hey, anything to get more, was it Ben Mendelsohn? He's fantastic as the lead Skrull. Anything to have him in more movie because he's a really good actor. I've enjoyed him in everything I've seen him in. He was a perfect casting for that movie because he's been the scumbag bad guy in so many movies. Gosh, he was a second-tier scumbag in Batman Rises. He was in the Rogue One, the Star Wars film. Heck, he just played the Sheriff of Nottingham in that Robin Hood movie that nobody watched. I'd be in favor of it. I don't know if they'll do it, but I'd be in favor of it.
And another idea that I had was that there were Skrulls that were on Earth. Like, there could potentially be Skrulls that have just been, like, living as humans this whole time, called to join the fight, too. And knowing that, like, maybe they don't have a dog in this fight with the humans or whatever, but then they know that Carol has done so much for their people, like, they're willing to back her. I think this is going to be all hands on deck kind of thing. I mean, obviously the Avengers are going to be leading this charge, but I think like there's a lot of humans, there's a lot of aliens who have a dog in this fight because everybody lost somebody.
It'd be pretty interesting if you had the Nova Corps from the Guardians movies, if you had the Asgardians, even characters who've been bad guys in previous films, like the Chitauri from the first movie. It's like, oh no, he kills everybody if they turn on Thanos. So you could have a pretty interesting scene where just all these forces, be they good guys or bad guys, just show up at the end. It'd be a neat way to have cameos with the Abomination from The Incredible Hulk or the Vulture from Homecoming. It'd be pretty cool to have all those characters sort of show up because even though they normally are the bad guys, not that bad.
Yeah, this is bigger than that.
Not kill half the universe. Yeah.
Anybody have any final thoughts about Captain Marvel or Endgame or? Oh, I actually. Where was Goose? I saw no Goose in that trailer.
Hey, Nick probably shot that. Once he got the Tesseract, he probably shot that cat in the face. I believe he only kept that cat to get the Tesseract, and he wasn't trying to surgically remove it because he ain't want to get eaten. But the moment he saw that on his desk, that Nick probably took a cannon to that cat's face.
Do you like that origin story of how he lost his eye? Because it's always been this big mystery, and that he doesn't want to, like, I trusted somebody I shouldn't have, and he's very vague about it and doesn't want to talk about it. I mean, obviously now, like, a cat scratched me in the eye. Yeah, it sounds kind of lame, but, like, are you satisfied with that origin story?
I am perfectly fine with it because almost like his shame, and for him to be such a bad to lose his eye that way, and it's not the typical story. It's not what we would have expected for them to do, for him to lose his eye. I love it being the cat that took his eye.
I'm okay with it. It had to be something. There isn't going to be a Nick Fury movie, I don't believe. So whatever they do was going to be a secondary story in someone else's movie. Honestly, when else were you going to do it? I don't know how many other movies are going to be flashbacks. Maybe the Black Widow film might be like an origin story for her, which is fine, and maybe they could have done it there, but I don't know. I think it would have been fine, and it was sort of played for laughs. There's 1,000 different things they could have done, and it all would have been fine. I was fine with it. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. It was like, okay, that answers that. We don't have to worry about it anymore.
Well, now that Carol is on the scene, do you think she's going to spill the beans? Just, like, not even knowing, just kind of, like, in passing?
I think that would be a cool conversation. Like, she doesn't realize that maybe she shouldn't say anything about it, but she just says it. Yeah, he lost his eye to a cat. And then they look back like, a cat?
That would be sort of fun, although she may not have the chance to say that because Nick's not going to be in this movie very much. Last we saw, he was getting dusted. You talked about which interactions we're looking forward to seeing. A lot of cool interactions aren't going to be able to happen. We'll barely see her reunite with Nick. We're not going to see Groot and Carol. We're not going to see Scarlet Witch interact with anyone else. But yeah, it would be pretty funny. There was something like they sort of had a bet on what happened, and it turns out it's like, did anybody have cat scratch?
Oh my god, that would be so great if they all just started ponying up money. Like, did anybody have that? Like, it wasn't a cat, right? Did you have cat? Oh my god, that's like a perfect end credit scene.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, like, at the end. Kind of like in the end when they're eating the, what was it? Shawarma?
Shawarma,
All
yep.
together, yeah.
Post-credit, it's going to have to be Stan Lee, right?
Oh, what about that? All right, so the Stan Lee tribute by Marvel Comics at the beginning was freaking amazing. It was freaking amazing. It was so, wow. Like, that's where I want to be. Like, just change your whole intro to your movie to my face all over it. Please. That was incredible. And Stan's cameo of him reading the script from Mallrats, because that's what he'd be doing at that time in the 90s, that is genius. I'm doing the chef kiss right now. Mwah! That is genius. All right? That is one of my favorite cameos ever done. On top of that, the replay of Marvel shining on Kevin Smith after all these movies of Kevin Smith's referencing Marvel Comics, and he finally gets a plug in a Marvel movie. How dope is that? Oh my god. I would have been crying like a little baby like him too. I saw that post and his face was all blubbery and stuff. I'm like, Kevin, that movie wasn't that good, dog. And then I read what it was and I saw it. I was like, oh my god, that is, dude, that's super dope. As a creative, to have that happen for you and then be in the movies and not know that that's going to happen and that just show up, dude, that is so damn precious, man.
Yeah, I really like that play in there because I love Mallrats and I love Kevin Smith. I mentioned before that I loved all the 90s references. The music was on point for sure. I totally dug it. So I think it was very well done.
I thought they could have done one or two more 90s songs.
I mean, you can always do more 90s songs. I'm not going to argue with that, but they picked some really good ones. I really appreciated it.
It was a really good movie. I'm going to see it again.
Oh, yeah.
Michael, do you have anything that you would like to tell the group or a plug?
I'll be at the Spring Hill Hotel by the Marriott's next Friday as we are featured creative freestyle comics. We'll get to talk about comics, sell our comics, and do a couple different demos about making comics. And we have our Mortal Kombat event April 22nd. We'll be giving away a free copy of Mortal Kombat 11, but we will be celebrating that party at GameStop all night long, waiting for the game to launch with trivia, games, contests, raffles, comics, good times as always. That's all I got.
I want to be there so bad.
I know. When are you coming to Denver?
We are looking for a show for Denver, and we're trying to pitch our way there. As you know, you do live there. That's a expensive trip, but we're trying to convince some shows to bring us out for all the stuff that we bring to the table. So that's what we're working on right now.
Awesome. How about you, Brad? You got anything you want to plug?
I am the producer on Escape from New York Minute. You're not going to hear me. They basically told me to shut up, but I'm helping put the episodes together and doing the recording for it. Eric Deutsch and his partner Molly, they're hosting that. Looks like it's going to be a great show. It'll be out not too far in the future. Really excited to be part of that. So that's the big thing. And, of course, always check in on the Cosmic Geppetto podcast. We have some really cool stuff coming up, some with Honey Badger and her amazing friends. So it's a big summer. It's a big summer with some big movies. So we have big plans to go along with it.
Awesome. I did my 5K last week. We are $119 away from raising $2,000 for Special Olympics Colorado. So I'm kind of doing that last final push. The website is live until the end of March. So if you feel compelled to throw some money at a wonderful cause that I have been involved in for many, many years, you can check it out at honeybadger.live.
Do you love the Honey Badger and her amazing friends theme song? There is more where that came from at www.museguitarist.com. Founder Brad Huett is there to help you create your own music. And if you need a guitarist for studio or live work, there is no one better. Email questions to admin@museguitarist.com.
All of them come down.
Barricades and brick walls won't keep me from you. You can tie me down on a railroad track. You can let that freight train loose.
That wraps this episode of the Cosmic Geppetto podcast. Big thanks to Honey Badger and her amazing friends. Jarf and Michael are impossibly cool guys, and Katie was spectacular hosting our Captain Marvel conversation, as I knew she would be. Special big thanks to Oscar and Rolando from 5 Meets Comics. The clip at the beginning of this episode was from our conversation last week. I liked it too much to let it go unheard. Last minute big thanks to Sean German from 5 Minutes of Mime. He lent his epic voice to our new Honey Badger intro. Speaking of which, extra big thanks to Brad Huett. Brad created the new Honey Badger and her amazing friends theme song, and it is astounding. He is a wonderful guy, and you should check out his website, www.museguitarist.com. Upcoming to the Cosmic Geppetto podcast, my favorite entertainment writer, Tom Bacon, gives analysis on James Gunn returning to the director's chair for Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Till then, stay marvelous.
Subscribe to the Cosmic Geppetto podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever quality podcasts can be found. Rate and review us while there. Follow us on Twitter at CosmicGPod, and we will follow you back. Unless you're a jerk. We don't follow jerks. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cosmic Geppetto. We love hearing your ideas for upcoming episodes. Email us at cosmicgeppetto@comcast.net. Life finds a way.
Big old cars won't run me